Solar energy is the biggest source of energy that one has to learn, one has to appreciate in terms of growth, in terms of the development factor. In India, many windmills have been set up in different places like in Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, Rajasthan, Kerala, West Bengal and in Gujarat. The fossil fuels like coal, petroleum are non-renewable resources. They are found deep inside the earth and they're made by the natural process over many centuries. Good morning and welcome to the first session in Chapter 1, Unit 2, Sustainable Development in second semester B.B.A, where we are going to talk about resource taxonomy, renewable and non-renewable resources. Now, when you talk about the word resources itself, probably we have understood this word from people, from money, from materials, from inventory, from all angles possible that are more related to management, that are more materialistic in nature. But now let's talk about those resources which have been gifted by the nature to us, by God-given beautiful objects, beautiful gifts that have been given to us in the form of resources, starting with the air, water, land, soil, forest. All these resources are immeasurable. They're priceless. These resources are the primary resources that keeps this planet integrated. So it's very, very important that we take care of these resources. Now, these resources provide us raw materials that we get from the nature. They are typically naturally occurring materials. They are useful to us in many ways when we keep developing new ways to use them, to technically convert them into finished products. And the classification of these resources is what we are going to delve in detail. And when I talk about this resource, these resources are so intricately created, they are so intricate in nature that you cannot just separate them. You cannot see that how the creation has happened, how it is being converted and how it is trying to help us. But all we need to thank God and Mother Nature that they have given us such beautiful resources for the production, for the development of the entire universe. Now, followed by the classification. When you start classifying this resource, the natural resources are valuable to us, no doubt about it. But the problem here is that once you start replenishing the resource, once you are trying to use a resource again and again, you're just trying to go further, deplete the resource out of control, then automatically what happens here is that the resources get depleted fast and we are not able to come back. So now we're going to look two kinds of resource primarily. One is the renewable and the second one as the non-renewable resources. Now, what do you mean by the word renewable resources? When we talk about classification, we'll first see renewable, which means to say that these resources can be replenished or renewed naturally over the time. That means air, water, wind, solar energy are renewable resources. They can be easily renewed. They can be again brought back. They can be again created in the nature. So that's why I'm been talking about the renewable resources. They are again and again present with us. They don't just get depleted. They don't just empty themselves. They come back to us in different forms and format. But nevertheless, these are the energy that is essential for the human beings to exist. Followed by the solar energy. Let's talk about the solar energy, which is one of the biggest source of energy for us. Sun is the biggest source of energy, no doubt about it. That's how we have been really looking upon the universe. Every day morning when the sun rises, that tells us the beginning of the day. So sun is the biggest source of energy, and the energy that we get from them is called as the solar energy. All the natural phenomena like the flowing of wind, water cycle, photosynthesis, or probably, the scientific ideologies that run behind this earth is due to the sun or the solar energy. Nowadays, solar energy is being used to cook food. It is also being used to light the streets. It's being used in the industries and several other purposes. So solar energy is the biggest source of energy that one has to learn, one has to appreciate in terms of growth, in terms of the development factor. Now, what we are trying to do is that we are trying to harness the solar energy to the maximum extent possible so that we can convert this energy for a lot of meaningful purposes, not only for the light electrification that we are trying to talk about, but we are also trying to talk about the hybrid cell fuels and other kind of technology which can be looked into it, which can be developed to a very great extent as far as possible. Now, the next thing is called as the hydro energy. What is hydro? Hydro is water is important for natural resources. So naturally, when we talk about the hydro from the sun, when we move to the water as the next resource, hydro energy is the biggest thing that we can talk about. Now, normally we say that in literature, water is the elixir of life. Water is so important for human being. You cannot survive without water. So it is very important for all of us to understand the need and the sustenance of water in this planet. So now when you look into water, it's quite easy for all of us to predict, saying that it's used for drinking, it's used for cleaning, it's used for cooking, it's used for growing of crop. So many factors, no doubt about it. Without water, you cannot think about a planet. And all of us know that 97% of Earth is covered by water. Only 3% of Earth is covered by land mass. So you can see the quantity, you can see the amazing size of water that is being occupied through this planet. And this is a flowing energy, I would like to say. When water is stored in a particular place and it's released, the force at which the water comes out, the force in which the energy flows from one point to another is quite amazing to see. The simple method that is used in this hydro energy is to convert it into electrical energy. The force at which the water goes and hits the turbine and the water starts flowing in, that is the turbine starts rotating, that is used to convert the hydro energy into electrical impulses or to the energy altogether. So this is one thing which is very, very important for us. But the challenge what I look in India, specifically when we are talking about the sustainable development in economics, is that not every place in India is blessed with water. So we have water scarcity at every point of time. So at one point, you need to understand and appreciate this factor that how are we going to use it? How are we going to convert this hydro energy into something which is very, very useful? But then we have to start working about it. We have to start thinking how to build the system altogether. But nevertheless, hydro energy has always been one of the primary resources in terms of the renewable energy, followed by the wind energy. Now, wind, how can you classify it? How can you look at it? Now, that has got no shape. Wind is everywhere. We are with the wind. It flows around you. It flows around every single human being across this world. So wind is constantly created by the nature. Windmill is a source of electrical energy. These windmills are generally established only at places where most of the days in a year where you experience strong winds. Now, this is one thing that people always talk about. When you look at those beautiful windmills that you see in the picture here, this is a primary source of energy that you can talk about in any sector today. Now, what happens here is that the energy in this wind is used for grinding the grain, then it's used for pumping of water, it is used to produce electricity. In India, many windmills have been set up in different places like in Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, Rajasthan, Kerala, West Bengal, and in Gujarat. Now, we have understood over a period of time that windmill energy can be one of the most important renewable source of energy that can be used for varied purposes and that can also produce excellent output at a very, very minimal cost. So that's why we are now stressing upon developing of wind energy. So and you have seen companies like Suzlon, which is trying to invest a lot of money in terms of wind energy, and they believe that wind energy can be a source of generating electricity, can be a source of generating potential energy, and this could also help the government save millions of rupees. Followed by the biogas, which is a type of fuel which is a mixture of gases such as methane, carbon dioxide, hydrogen, which is primarily obtained by the decomposition of animal and plant waste like the animal dung with the help of microorganism in the presence of water. It is used as a fuel in gas stove, especially in rural areas. Now look at the power of Mother Nature. We all believe that what can we do with the soil, with the earth, or with the animal waste, or with the plants that are around us. But we never know that we have got innumerable capacity in terms of converting it into potential energy that can be used for storage and for development. Now, for an example, when you talk about the biogas, the rural sector, which is 70% of India's population, which stays in the rural part of India, they are trying to make use of this biogas as their primary cooking gas. Now that is a very, very good process. Why? Because you are not going to spend huge amount of money. Plus, you don't have to depend on a non-renewable resource. This is a renewable resource, and they are just recycling the animal waste into something productive. So what I would like to bring in here, the emphasis which I would like to talk upon is conversion of waste to something called as wanted. So waste to wanted. Look at the phenomenon altogether. When you talk about this word itself, waste to wanted, something that has been thought as waste that cannot be used further is now converted to something that is wanted, that is needed by every single household. So that's why I would say that biogas has got a huge potential in Indian market. Followed by wood, the most ancient and traditional source of energy. It has got a mixture of various carbohydrate compounds, and of course we all know that wood is used for cooking of food, and wood is used for several other purposes, even for boiling of water. And probably the biggest factor that wood is something that is available across every single area, especially in the rural and in the forestry. But then what is the challenge which I see in the wood is that moment you start cutting those trees, we forget to plant them back. So what happens in India is that over a period of time, you see barren lands everywhere. You have depleted the forest, you have completely ignored yourself in terms of creation, and all of a sudden you go back and look into those forests, you see barren wooden logs fallen down here and there. Now, those barren wooden logs are being used by the people in the rural segment for many purposes, but the problem with this wooden system, the wood, is that it starts generating a huge amount of smoke, which leads into air pollution. So I would always say that wood, though being an effective, a cheaper form of renewable energy, but nevertheless this is going to be harmful for the human health. So over a period of time, we have to stop cutting off trees, and we have to adopt ourselves to the biogas methodology altogether, which will also help us to conserve the nature and also conserve the human health altogether. Followed by the hydrogen. Now we know this as our symbol of hydrogen in the chemistry lab. Now we have seen that most of the time. But then hydrogen is a very good source of energy because it does not create pollution and produce maximum energy on burning. Now look at the fantastic property of hydrogen. Though this is a chemical substance altogether, not much known other than looking at it on the periodic table. But today, you need to learn about hydrogen and the potential factors, because this is actually going to help you to produce maximum energy with a zero pollution or a minimum pollution altogether. Now, hydrogen has the potential to be the answer to all our energy fuel troubles. Technology is currently being developed to fully utilize the hydrogen efficiency. So one side, when we are talking about the fuel efficiency, the other side, we are also talking about technology-driven era altogether. So what has hydrogen got to do is that it has got to build in a system which will create minimum pollution and maximum productivity. So that's where, again, I like to bring in this word. Now, we want to reduce one P called as pollution and increase the other P called as productivity. So let's talk about it. Let's understand this chapter and the concept very clearly. Reduce pollution, increase productivity. How can you do it? You need to switch yourself towards hydrogen, and technology can make it happen, can bring into the society, can bring into the system a much more qualified way of production that can help us to live better life altogether. Followed by which, let's move on to the non-renewable. From the renewable, when I shift my focus towards the non-renewable, moment I look into it, I'm a little bit worried. Why? Because just look at this beautiful greenery that you are seeing at the background, and there you see the pollution coming out. This industry is definitely important for employment, but this gas is not good for the greenery. Over a period of time, non-renewable resources are natural resources that are available in limited quantity. Now, these resources cannot be renewed or replenished in short duration. So when I talk about fossil fuels like petroleum, crude oil, these are the kind of non-renewable energy. Why? Because once you extract it from the ocean, from the underground altogether, you will not be able to again replenish it like wind, air, or water. It takes a long duration it is quite expensive. The other thing which I would also like to say is that the effort and cost that goes in terms of extracting this resources is also very, very expensive. So we have to be very, very careful when we talk about the usage of non-renewable resources. Fossil fuel. The fossil fuels like coal, petroleum are non-renewable resources. They are found deep inside the earth and they're made by the natural process over many centuries. So now a fossil fuel, as I was trying to talk about the petroleum, or when we talk about diesel, crude oil and all those factors, these are those fuels which are found deep under the earth, thousands of feet down, and they are being created by Mother Nature. But the biggest part of the story is that they are limited in nature. They're not found unlimited. And the fossil fuels are something which are found only in particular geographical areas, not in every place. So whenever we talk about petroleum, natural gas, LPG, and all those kind of factors, these are all limited factors that we are talking about. So we need to be extra cautious in terms of extracting these resources, putting them to use, and seeing that is being judicially used for a useful purpose. Followed by the fossil fuel, the most important thing, coal, which I would like to call it as the black diamond, which is also a very, very important factor altogether. The coal is the primary source for creating power, electricity. And we all know that in India, currently we have been facing a lot of shortage in coal, because of which the production of electricity has also been affected. Now, we have been importing coal at a greater price from many other countries, thanks to the geopolitical situation that has been existing between Russia and Ukraine, which has also led to one of the conflicts here in terms of our production. But nevertheless, coming back to the subject, we need to understand that coal is one of the richest fossil fuel that we can talk about, and we need to be very, very careful as we keep on extracting this coal. Probably sometime down the year we might be left out without any coal energy at all. Followed by natural gases like CNG, the compressed natural gas. These are a very, very alternative factors, very good alternative factors that you can talk about instead of petroleum or instead of any other formats altogether. But yes, this will actually help us to grow better. This will actually help us to understand how do we produce the factors of growth, how do we produce the needs altogether. And this is very, very important for all of us. Why? Because it not only just produces a lot of heat, but it also helps us to reduce pollution. Now, the city of Delhi was the first one, the capital of India, which went in for CNG based autos. Why? Because they wanted to reduce the pollution at that point of time. So definitely CNG is one of the very good form of non-renewable resources or energy that's available with us, and this will definitely try to replace petroleum and diesel, etc. Followed by the fossil fuel. When we talk about petroleum, nothing more than that. This is the liquid gold that keeps running in most of the vehicles all over India or probably across the globe. So everybody is really, really mad about this particular fuel. Why? Because every day when you look into the meters that have been running across in the petrol bunks, the prices that have been going across for petroleum, everybody gets really mad about it. They don't find an alternative, though we have told that electric vehicles will come in. But this liquid mineral that we are talking about is a priceless range altogether. Now, most of the plastics cosmetics, lubricants are also a part of petroleum. It's found deep inside the earth, under the sea floor. It is taken out by using the method of drilling deep bore wells under the seabed. There are very few companies in the world. They are very rich companies who involve themselves in the drilling of the oil from the seabed. But nevertheless, the most important thing about petroleum is that you cannot keep on drilling and extracting it, because over a period of time, we have understood that the petroleum fuels or the fossil fuels might last hardly for another next 20 or 30 years. After that, we have to shift ourselves towards the electric source altogether. Followed by nuclear energy. This is a heavy thing to be talked about. The moment you look at it, it's all glowing bright there. Nuclear energy is one of the most powerful energy that we can talk about. This is classified as a non-renewable. The reason is that it has got a very, very limited supply. So you cannot look into nuclear energy as something that's available across the floor everywhere. So we classify it as a non-renewable, and the production capacity for this is also limited. India has, as a nuclear power, is not really made a great progress, though we have made some significant steps towards it. But most of the other countries have also ensured that using nuclear energy, they have been able to harness some sort of growth and development. The nuclear energy is also safe for the environment, no doubt about it. But the production cost, the amount of involvement in terms of people, process and technology is quite expensive here. So we need to really work about it. But nuclear energy can definitely be a very good substitute in terms of the renewable factors. Now, with this, we come to the end of today's session. I hope and believe that all the facts and figures that have been spoken through this session will be of a great use to you, both in terms of theory as well as in terms of practicals. Now, in the next session, we will be talking more about the natural resources, the environmental economics, which govern our day-to-day life. But until then, I want you to stay tuned, stay blessed, and stay enlightened forever. Thank you once again for joining me today on this wonderful session.